Welcome back to the Regent Law Podcast. On today's episode, we'll hear from Chidi James, a practicing attorney and the 85th president of the Virginia State Bar, as he shares stories from his faith and legal practice at Law School Chapel. Thanks.
Well, it's a privilege to greet you all, to be with you all, to welcome you all here today, and especially it's a privilege to welcome my good friend Chidi James, who's agreed to come and speak with us here today. We're old friends. We've known each other for quite some time. We met at the University of Virginia, which each year hosts an event called the National College of Trial Advocacy, where he and I have served together as members of the faculty there for years now. He is arguably the finest, most talented, and most inspirational member of that entire faculty, if not one of the top two. As we all know, our beloved Professor Brad Jacob, a couple of years ago, decided and told his students he wanted to start being known as Professor Brad, to be going on a first-name basis with all of his students. And I thought that was a nice touch at the time, and I thought to myself, well, maybe I should invite my students to call me Professor James. But I immediately realized that would not be a good idea because our guest speaker today is named Chidi James, and God willing, he will soon be Professor James here at Regent Law School. I asked him at dinner last night if he'd like to join us on the faculty, and he said there was no way, but you don't know. You don't know. Maybe he has not yet perceived the leading of the Holy Spirit in his life, so in faith, I'm going to start calling him Professor James. I'll gladly relinquish my claim to that possible title so he can have it instead. We'd be glad to have you on the faculty if you'd like to join us. My friend Chidi James, our guest speaker here today, he's the president of the Virginia State Bar Association. He is the first African-American male ever selected to be the president of the Virginia State Bar. He is also, as you will see, the youngest and the healthiest looking president the State Bar has ever had, which makes me sort of jealous because extrapolating from all of the presently available data about the scope and the thrust of my own professional trajectory, I'm presently on course to become the oldest president in the history of the Virginia State Bar, surely the oldest looking. Chidi he got his sociology degree at the University at Texas A&M. Can't beat that. And then he went on and got his law degree at George Mason School of Law, which has now since been renamed as the Antonin Scalia Law School. While he was there, he was one of the founders of their trial advocacy program. He was also the leader and the director of the program. He was a member of the Student Bar Association there. After law school, he went on to clerk at the Arlington County Circuit Court. He then completed the Judge Advocate General School at Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery, Alabama. He's more recently retired from the Air National Guard after 25 years of distinguished service to our nation, for which we are profoundly grateful. Give him a hand. His list of professional achievements is so long and detailed, and the extent of my own dementia is so advanced that I can't recite all of them without a short list here. He's also served as the president of the Board of Legal Services of Northern Virginia, the Northern Virginia Black Attorneys Association. He's on the board and has served on the board of the Fairfax Law Foundation, the Old Dominion Bar Association. He's also been active at the Scalia Law School, where he remains on the Dean's Alumni Advisory Board and also continuing to coach trial practice teams at the school. He's also served as an adjunct for the students up there at George Washington School of Law in Northern Virginia, and he's a partner and the head of the personal injury litigation section at Blankenship and Keith in Northern Virginia. So if you're looking for work after law school and you brought your resume with you, we're going to have them in a pile up here. Here's mine. I'll start the pile. Please join me in welcoming my good friend, Chidi James. Thanks. Great to have you. Thanks. Oh, I got one.
Okay, I hope that works. Can you hear me? Professor Dwayne, thank you for that introduction. When I heard he was going to introduce me, I got a little scared. I think that he is a wonderful professor and speaker and stand-up comedian. So you folks who get to enjoy that as part of your legal education, you're very, very fortunate. And thank you, Dean Lingo, for inviting me to Regent University. I had dinner last night with Professor Dwayne and his lovely wife, and I asked him, what are the sorts of things that you might want to hear about? And so he said, well, and his wife, they said, well, just tell them about yourself and maybe the intersection between your faith and your practice. So I'll attempt to do that. One other preliminary thing. I've never been to a law school that had, musicians like that. Wow, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. And then, what was your name again? Isaac. When Isaac came in with that violin, I thought, wow, this is beautiful. This is beautiful and special. Treasure this experience. It's not what you will experience once you get out into practice. We don't stop in the middle of the day typically and have chapel, but you can do that in your offices. I'll play my Pandora in my office, and I'll have gospel music on a lot of times. And it really puts me in a mindset where things don't bother me as much. Not that I don't have issues or get frustrated, but it really helps to keep my mind in a place where I don't lose it, basically. So that's a really, really, really good thing. I hope you all will keep that up. So my comments, I'd just like to first, give glory to God and my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, for I know without him I wouldn't be here standing in front of you today. If you were to take me as a child and tell me that one day I'd be standing here in front of you, or told some of my friends or family members, they would have said, no way, not even a chance. And I mean, there are a lot of reasons or excuses for that. But one of them, I think, was probably a lack of confidence, a lack of self-esteem. I know none of you suffer from that, but it was something that I had to deal with, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Last June, I was sworn in as the 85th president of the Virginia State Bar. Just not too far from here. I'm in Virginia Beach at the Hilton Oceanfront Hotel. That's where the conference is. And as Professor Dwayne said, I'm the first African-American male to serve in that role in the bar's 85-year history. So I'm the 85th president, and I count that, to nothing but the grace of God. When I was a child, I think one of the things that sort of lent or increased my lack of self-confidence was that typically when I was in a classroom, I was the only one who looked like me. And then I was a skinny little kid. I wore a black child in the class. No one else looks like him. Wore glasses. And then my parents had the foresight to give me a name that is so unusual that it messed with my self-confidence. So my first name is Chidi. My middle name is Irabulem. Okay, so Chidi Irabulem James. Now, how do you get that? My parents are from Guyana in South America. My dad came to the U.S. to go to college, and he came to the U.S. in the 60s, the turbulent 60s is when he came to school here in the U.S., and he had a lot of Nigerian friends, and so he wound up giving me a Nigerian name, and so that's how I came up, wound up with the name that I have. As I was contemplating sort of my journey and looking back, there is a scripture from 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 28, which I wasn't familiar with when I was younger. But what it says is, God chose the lowly things of this world and the despised things and the things that are not to nullify the things that are, so that no one may boast before him. And I'm definitely a living testament to that. And so I'm grateful. So my name, Chidi Irabulem James. My father's name, very, very British sounding. My father's name was Frank Mortimer James. My brother is Brian Avery Anthony James. My uncle was Clarence Cavendish James. So those are the sorts of names that we had in my family until I came along. So my name, Chidi, actually means, it's an Igbo name. It's from the Igbo tribe in Nigeria, and it means God exists. My middle name, I don't like to tell people, so please don't repeat it. Irabulam means no man shall kill me. All right. So if I'd walked into St. Felicitas, that was a school in Cleveland when I was, 5 years old, and said, "Hi, my name is God exists, no man shall kill me," I probably would have had a better response than "I am Chidi." Yeah. But anyway, so that was the beginnings of things for me. But I think being different and having a different name, different type of name, was good for me, in a sense. Have anybody ever heard of a lawyer named Stacey Abrams? Some of you nodding in. So she's a politician. She's in Georgia, and she wrote a book called "Lead from the Outside." And in that book, she talks about the benefits of leaders having experiences that are different. And I thought the book it was a real gem, because it made me appreciate the fact that I am different and not be afraid to go ahead and use my experience and my thoughts and put them out there, because those are things that can help others. There are a lot of people in this world, and chances are there are people who think and who feel the same way that you think and feel. And then when you're able to talk to them or speak up in a room, in a setting, you'll give voice to some of the things that people are feeling that they don't have the courage to say. So don't think that you're alone. That was one of my problems, I think, early on. Another one of the scriptures that I hold close to me is from 1 Timothy, where it says, 2 Timothy, where it says that God has not given me a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline. So some of you have met, judges. There's a judge who was one of my mentors. His name was Judge Gerald Bruce Lee. I don't know if any of you, I know, you know Judge Lee, Jim. And he would talk about us before we got up to go and do something. And we had, the jitters. He would call it the adrenaline of excellence. And so I would get that adrenaline of excellence quite often. And just that saying, that God has not given me a spirit of fear. Just saying it to myself before I do something, before I go somewhere, before I speak up, it has a calming effect on me. So that's something that I think it was important. So I wanted to give some practical advice, and that was one, that you have something that is very meaningful to you from your faith that you can use when you step out. Say it to yourself and get yourself prepared. And that one is one for me when I feel anxious. So I would commend that to you. You might have another verse that you like before you go and take your first deposition, or when you go to have your first trial, if you have trials early on, or even when you turn in your first memo to that partner that you're afraid of because he's going to bleed all over your paper like one of your professors. Go ahead and have that courage to speak up, tell them what you think, provide your work to them, and accept the feedback that's going to be given. Second, I would say, how many of you are third years? Okay, all right, very good, very good. So you'll soon be taking the bar exam. And then within the first year after taking the bar exam, you have to take a professionalism course. And as part of my jobs, one of my duties as president of State Bar is I go and I speak to the professionalism course. And when I speak to them, I always start off by saying that Virginia is for good lawyers. You've heard of the phrase, Virginia is for lovers? Some of you heard, yeah? Yes, some of you have, okay, yeah. Well, Virginia is not only for lovers, it's also for good lawyers, but that begs the question of what is a good lawyer? In my view, good lawyer is trustworthy, passionate, thoughtful, thorough, and courageous. A good lawyer can disagree with you without being disagreeable. A good lawyer can fight for the things he or she cares about, but does so in a way that respects others, leaves them with their dignity, and win or lose, with the respect for our system of justice. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, when she was alive, she once said, "Fight for the things you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you." And I understand after my lunches with your dinner with your faculty that Regent University has a saying that says that Regent University's goal is to train Christian leaders to change the world. Did I get that right? Okay. Well, I think I met somebody, I didn't even know that he was from Regent, but after meeting him and spending time with him, and he told me that he was a graduate of Regent, I said, okay, that figures. His name is Darius Davenport. Any of you? Okay, some of you know Darius, so I know him from bar events. And I think he was an assistant dean here at one point. Now he's a managing partner at Crenshaw, Ware, and Martin in Norfolk. He's also a leader in the Virginia State Bar, the Virginia Bar Association, managing partner of his firm. He was president of the Old Dominion Bar Foundation, and I'm on that bar foundation with him. And there have been times we've had discussions and disagreements about things. And his agreements, am I still being heard? His method of handling those disagreements was just, it was beautiful. He got his point across. A lot of times he was right, and so I had to concede and agree with him. But that's the sort of leadership I think that is important, and that's what I think makes a good lawyer, someone who can disagree with you, give you their points and reasons, but not be disagreeable. Now, can you imagine what life would be like if everyone in our country fought that way? In so many instances in our society today, we don't merely fight to win. We fight to win, then to taunt, humiliate, and try to demoralize the other party. In our sports worlds, any football fans here? Okay, we're going to see the Chiefs in San Francisco on Sunday. And of course, the Chiefs are probably going to win, I assume. It's my assumption. But, so many of our professional athletes, you'll see someone make an incredible play, just spectacular. All the cameras will go off, and making the play and the score is not enough, because then they'll go and they'll taunt the nearest player. They'll get in their face and they'll do trash talking. And that sort of behavior, it's contagious. Some of you have children playing youth sports. I know I was talking to Dean Lingo about his daughter in her youth sports, and you'll see it there too, because it's something that is emulated from that next generation when they look up and see their sports heroes doing that. It becomes part of our culture. And then look at the state of our politics. It's not enough that we debate each other on the issues. So many times it devolves into attacks on the candidates themselves. Retired Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy once remarked that we must aspire to restore decency, thoughtfulness, and honor to our civic discourse, because democracy presumes that there will be a consensus based on thoughtful debate. And thoughtful debate should be the hallmark of our profession. The problem is it cuts against the grain of our society. My hope for you as you graduate from law school and continue your careers is that you will practice in that manner, full of thoughtful debate, like your alum Darius, who I was just talking about, because that is one way that you will start to change our society, okay, and serve the world. Okay. Lastly, my third point is my last piece of practical advice, is that you should strive to be an advisor and not an oarsman. And this one will take just a little bit of explanation. There was a book. I have a book club that I meet with once a week, and we read a book called The Compassionate Samurai. And in that book, there was a story that I liked, to make the point about being an advisor versus an oarsman. And it goes something like this. Once upon a time in the days of sailing ships, kings and queens, there were two men. They grew up on the same streets and attended the same schools. They moved apart, but eventually wound up working on the same ship. One of them as an oarsman and the other as a king's advisor. The oarsman was jealous of the king's advisor because of the good job that he had, and he believed that he should be an advisor too. He had the same education, so why not? It just didn't seem fair. Now the king heard the oarsman's complaints, and when the ship landed, the king said to the oarsman, "Go to the top of the hill and tell me what it is that you see." The oarsman ran to the top of the hill and came back down and said that cats were fighting. And the king asked, "How many cats?" After climbing the hill again, the oarsman said, "There were 5 cats." "Well, what kind of cats?" the king asked. The oarsman climbed the hill yet again, and upon returning said, 2 black cats, 3 brown ones. "Well, what types of cats were they?" said the king. After climbing the hill again, he came back down and he said they were Manx cats. Then the king called the advisor and said, "Go to the top of the hill and tell me what you see." And upon returning, the advisor said, "There were 5 cats fighting. 2 were black, 3 were brown. A fellow over the hill owns them. He says that if the cats are bothering you, he will put them inside. However, if you're asking because you admire them, he will give them to you." So do you see the difference there? In your practice, especially early on in your practice, strive to be that advisor when you're given an assignment. Strive to take a look at the bigger picture. Figure out what it is that we should be looking for in this case. What should we be working on? And think about that big picture when you go back to give your memo or whatever else you're going to give to your supervisors. I think that advice would stand you in very good stead when you get out into practice. So that is another piece of, I think, some very practical advice. I said that was my final thought, but I actually have one more thought. Okay. And that is, remember to be grateful. Lawyers make up less than 0.5% of the population. Yet we have a greater ability to impact our communities and the world. So please don't take that for granted. There was a movie that I like. It was called Spider-Man. You guys like Spider-Man? Some of you? Yeah. Well, Uncle Ben, when he was dying, he told Peter, what did he tell Peter? With great power comes great responsibility. Your law degree conveys great power upon you. I mean, you have the ability to go and stand before a court and represent people who can't speak for themselves. So don't take that lightly. You've probably already experienced it. When I was in law school, I had family members call me for legal advice. Members of my unit would ask me for legal advice. People are going to look to you. Once you were admitted to law school, they started asking you for legal advice. So just realize that you have a lot of power, and I hope that you will use it well and that you will give back. So with that, thank you for allowing me to speak. And I pray that the Lord will guide and protect you and prosper you in your legal careers. Thank you very much.